This is one of the most famous airplanes ever built. Well, not this one, but the one it's modeled off of. This airplane is called the Spirit of St. Louis, and it was built with one job in mind. That was to go from the east coast of the United States to Paris, France, nonstop, without refueling or anything. And to do that, this is in 1927, I think. And Charles Lindbergh was the pilot. He was the one that he helped design the plane. I think it was built in San Diego, and it was named Spirit of St. Louis because Lindbergh was from St. Louis. To do that, everything about this airplane had to be made light. So it had kind of a hollow piping of metal for frame, covered with canvas. And then the wings were made out of some sort of well, it was wood, but it was a wood laminate that was also covered in canvas. And it was essentially a big flying fuel tank up front. You'll notice there's no way for him to see out. There's no cockpit screen in front of him. If he needed to look forward, he would crab the plane into the wind and look out the side windows on either side. Did this because he needed extra fuel storage. I can't remember how many gallons this thing held, but basically everything up here and in front or right behind the engine is fuel storage because he needed all that fuel to get across the Atlantic Ocean. The only thing that was built real heavy on the plane was the landing gear. They overbuilt it because if he had to abort a takeoff, the fuel was so heavy on takeoff that it would have collapsed normal landing gear. So he had to have extra built into the landing gear to keep it from collapsing and then blowing up if he was to land. The plane had a 9-cylinder radial engine that was the first of its kind. It was designed to essentially secrete lubricants. Prior to that, they would lubricate everything around the engine, around the propeller every few hours, but it had to do it on its own, so it could do it. It could fly for 40 hours, they thought, without being stopped and re-lubricated. Uncomfortable airplane and difficult to fly. He actually sat in, it's pre-plastic, so he sat in a wicker chair inside this thing.
Charles Lindbergh.
Charles Lindbergh. It was uncomfortable, and there's a theory that they designed it to be uncomfortable to keep him awake. I think the flight took something like 31 hours, and he had to stay awake, obviously, for the whole thing because you had to actually fly this airplane. It didn't have autopilot of any sort. So keeping him uncomfortable meant he kept it going. And the flight itself was harrowing at times. He had to go through at least one storm. He had to drop to 500 feet or so at one point. Most of the flight was done, I think, at like 5,000 feet. And he landed, I believe, in the middle of the night at Orly Airfield north of Paris. And there were 150,000 Frenchmen out there waiting to see him. No one knew if it could be done before that. A plane had been flown from Halifax to Ireland in nonstop, but the big prize was to be able to go all the way across the Atlantic from the eastern seaboard of the United States to France. So this is it. It's hanging in the Smithsonian, the Spirit of St. Louis. My mother-in-law is from St. Louis, so she made a little note. It does say Spirit of St. Louis on the side of it.
There you go. Good job, Mom.
And it's hanging in the Smithsonian, I believe, right next to the X-1 and the Apollo space capsule. So that's it. Spirit of St. Louis.
Good job, Boo. Boo, do dogs make you happy?
Dogs make me happy.